Nick here, and on today's episode I will be analyzing the Dark Souls board game characters that you start with the base game, going through each one of them, talking a little bit about the weapons that they start, kind of the gameplay for them, and some ideas for weapons and armor that you can use as you play the game. On my channel you can find board game and video game analysis as well as unboxing and how to play videos. So if you're new to my channel, welcome and consider subscribing to receive the latest updates. This guide is focused on play sessions with 2 to 4 players. Let's start with the Assassin class. The Assassin's best stats are Dexterity and Intelligence, and they have an initiative of 8, which means that they pull enemies aggro if there is no knight or warrior around. Its character class ability is Backstab. After a successful enemy attack dodge, the assassin can use the ability to attack the enemy they dodged without any stamina cost. You still need to be in range though. This class relies a lot on dodge, and in case you are learning the game, each successful dodge costs 1 stamina. The assassin's starting gear allows the player to use 2 dice to dodge, but it has only 1 black dice for physical and magical resistance, and its weapon, the stock, does -1 damage by default, which is really bad and will cause a lot of frustration, but we will talk about that later. For encounter positioning, I strongly suggest that you should have the assassin far from the enemies, as to not pull the aggro towards you. I like pairing it with the Herald, in case an enemy still finds its way towards the node, as it will pull the aggro towards the assassin instead of the Herald. The first piece of gear you should replace is your weapon. The stock is really bad and causes a lot of frustration, because independently of the roll, you get a -1. So you want to change it to another one-handed weapon that favors dexterity and intelligence, and has an upgrade slot, like the scimitar. The next thing you should look for is increasing your dodge dice roll from 2 dice to 3 dice. There are a few good armors that give 2 dice. If you don't find anything to increase your dodge roll, try having gear that increases physical and magical resistance, like black armor. So if you find enemies that have attacks with 2 dodge difficulty, you can block instead of rolling. If you find the assassin transposed shield called Elkhorn Round Shield, stick to it. It's a very good one, as it allows you to have a 2-handed weapon while equipped with it. And it allows you to use some cool weapons like the Lucerne or Mankin Claws from Darkroot. Try looking for weapons that add another dice to dodge rolls and also that have move icon on the attacks. For armor upgrades, I recommend the Darkwood Grain Ring from the Explorer's expansion. What it does is that it makes you move 2 nodes instead of 1, for free. And the Life Ring from Iron Keep, as it grants an extra stamina slot. If your team is up for it, the Dancer of the Boreal Valley has some fun loot for assassins, with its armor that has 2 dice for a dodge, and the Dancer's enchanted swords that gives you movement and magical damage, allowing you to attack 2 times in a row. Once you have the weapons that have the movement, you can use them to move without spending your movement action. Attack the enemy, and then retreat to a safe position on the board. Another cool item to go for, if you have the Asylum Demon expansion, is fighting the demon as a mini-boss and acquiring the Big Pilgrim's Key that allow you to start the combat from any entry node, and not only the ones aligned with the tiles you moved from. That way, you can start on the opposite side and take those nasty archers. Let's move to the Herald class. The Herald's best stats are Faith and Strength, and they have a low initiative, so you will be safe against single target attacks if another player character is on the same node. This class ability is Perseverance. The Herald can use it during its activation. It removes 2 stamina points for all the player's character's sheet. The Herald starting gear allows the player to attack in a range of 1, but also contains a talisman that removes up to 6 stamina from other player's character's sheet. As a Herald, your focus should be on healing stamina and health, and you have to try staying out of a fight, because your character doesn't start with the best defenses. For encounter positioning, I recommend having the Herald far from the enemies, as to not pull the aggro towards you. I like pairing it with the Assassin, in case an enemy still finds its way towards that node, as it will pull the aggro towards the Assassin instead of the Herald. The first piece of gear you should replace is your shield. It doesn't give magic resistance and it's fairly weak. I recommend again the effigy shield. for its low stats requirements or anything that makes you a little bit more resistant and pairs with your strong stats. Then I would recommend changing your armor. A good armor in the early game would be the Sunless armor, and later on the Cathedral Knight armor, which is the Herald class gear. I would pair the armor with the Herald class item Tiny Beans ring and the Chloranthy ring, which boosts your stamina heal powers. In parallel, start looking for other healing options. You can go for Heal Aid, and later on for Heal, which allows you to heal 4 health every turn, and if it paired with the Chloranthy ring, you will never be spending more stamina than the cost. If things go south, you can also equip the Talisman and the Heal Aid so that you heal stamina and health at the same time, but make sure that you are far from enemies when you do so. For later gear, I recommend getting the Partisan's Transposed Herald class weapon in case you still have the effigy shield, and the Soothing Sunlight, which drops as a treasure for the Dancer of the Boreal Valley. Next, let's talk about the Warrior class. The Warrior's best stats are Strength, and the class is balanced on Dexterity and Faith. It has the second highest initiative in the game. The class's ability is Berserk Charge. It can be used during the Warrior's activation and allows the player to move one node without spending stamina, and it also makes the next range 0 attack cost no stamina and target all the enemies inside the node. The Warrior's starting gear allows the player to do attacks in area by spending 2 stamina and does 2 black dice for damage. Its physical resistance is okay, but as the other classes it has poor magical resistance. For this class you should focus on damage power and good resistance. For encounter positioning, I recommend having the Warrior as close as possible to the enemies, but in the same node as the Knight, so that the Knight gets the aggro and you deal damage. This strategy might change if enemies do damage to all the characters in the same node. On that case, move the Warrior to the same node as the Herald and the Assassin. The first piece of gear you should replace is your shield, as to strengthen your defenses. Again, Effigy Shield is a good choice for its ability to be equipped with a 2-handed weapon. A fairly good item is the Gargoyle Tail Axe from the Gargoyle mini-boss, or the Stone Greatsword from the Dark Root expansion. Boost your weapon with a +1 damage ASAP so that you can do heavy damage to enemies. And don't be shy. This class's main focus is about dealing damage to enemies. It's about DPS, so go for it. For armor, I recommend the Firelink armor. Then the Fallen Knight armor transposed item or the Black Knight armor from the character's expansion. Later on, I would look for weapons that deal damage from 1 of range to all enemies inside the node, like the Giant's Halberd. Good options for one-handed weapons are the Warpick and the Dragon Slayer's Axe. And for endgame, I would go for the Fume Knight Greatsword or Smo's Hammer. And for last, let's check the Knight. The Knight best stats are Strength and Dexterity, and it has the highest initiative in the game, becoming the target for most enemies. The Knight's ability is Stand Fast. If used during a Knight's block roll, the character may roll an additional blue die and add it to the roll. The Knight's starting gear is the best at physical resistance, with 1 blue and 1 black dice. It's weak against magical resistance, and its weapon starts with 1 blue die for damage at 0 stamina cost. So pretty good. But remember, your main role as a knight is to strengthen your defenses, so you become the character that will be taking all the heavy hit, calling the enemy's attention while the assassin and the warrior deal damage. For encounter positioning, I recommend having the knight as close as possible to enemies as to make them attack you instead of the other characters. If your enemies do single target damage, you can have the warrior with you in the same node, as the knight's initiative is higher, and they will attack you instead of the warrior. And then, the warrior can attack without moving, as they will be on your node. The first piece of gear you should replace is your shield. Get something that increases your magical damage resistance, like the Dragon Crest Shield, or my all-time favorite, Effigy Shield. Then improve your armor. Two good choices are the Lothric Knight Armor and the Firelink Armor. For weapon, you can go for the Morning Star, or if you have the Effigy Shield, you can go for the Winged Spear, or the Halberd, or the Great Axe, as they also increase your defenses. Later on, for one-handed weapons, you can go for the Dark Sword or Drake Sword, and for armor, you can go for the Black Knight Armor from the character's expansion, or the Farum Armor Transposed Knight Treasure. For endgame armor, you can go with the Winged Knight or the Black Knight Armor rare version from the character's expansion. The 2 Knight class equipment upgrades, the Sun Princess Ring and the Blue Tearstone Ring, are very good to have as well. Now that we've talked about all the classes, I hope you have a good idea on which class you want to play, or if you played already with one of them, I hope to give you some understanding about how the other classes work and the kind of items you should be looking for. Thank you, and see you guys next time.